Good evening, mommies and daddies, little ones. I am so glad to be here with you guys. I know it's been a few weeks since we've been on. Life just got in the way a little bit, and I apologize from the bottom of my heart. But I'm back, and I'm so glad to have you guys here in Interactive Nanny's World. This is Don, aka the Interactive Nanny, coming to you from Interactive Nanny's World, where love and play are interacting. And so we're just going, well, first, like I said, I'm glad to have you guys, and I'm glad to be back on Interactive Nanny's World. Some of the little ones have gone back to school within the last couple of weeks. Some of you guys have actually started this week, whether virtually or online. Interactive Nanny wants you to have a great, awesome, successful year. If you're doing, virtually or in physical school. My bad. If you are actually going to school in the classroom, be safe, follow the rules, make sure you social distance, wear your mask if you're supposed to. If you're at the age of wearing your mask in school, please wear your mask. Make sure you keep your hands clean, and all of the other rules that come into. I know it's very different. It's just not like it was before the pandemic hit, but you can still learn. You can still have fun. It's just different. So anyway, since we are coming back after a break, I figured out that we just have story time today. So we're gonna do 2 books, and one of them is actually a chapter book, but we're just gonna read one chapter of the chapter book, and then weeks to follow, we'll sort of finish up the chapter book and just see what happens. But the first book that we're reading today is Mark Brown, and it's Arthur's Underwear. Some of you guys probably actually watch Arthur when you get out of school, or whenever, if you like Arthur. Arthur was one of my favorites. So we're going to read about Arthur's Underwear. And it's by Mark Brown. Binky Barnes was at the board doing a difficult problem. That's correct, said Mr. Rayburn. Very good. Binky cheered, yes, and dropped his chalk. As he bent down, the class heard a loud rip. Everyone laughed except Mr. Ratburn. Go to the office and ask Miss Tingley to sew them up, he said. That afternoon at softball practice, when Binky came up to bat, Arthur thought about Binky in his underwear and laughed. During dinner, Mom asked, anything interesting happened at school today? Arthur started to laugh. What's so funny? Asked D.W., but Arthur couldn't stop laughing to answer. The next morning, Arthur woke up late. He hurried through breakfast and ran most of the way to school. Sorry I'm late, Mr. Ratburn. I guess my alarm. Everyone burst out laughing. Mr. Reed, being late is one thing, said Mr. Ratburn, but not wearing any trousers, that's quite another. Arthur looked down and screamed. Arthur's scream woke him up. Wow, he thought, what a horrible dream. In school, the class watched a science film. The amoeba is a single-cell life form. Arthur's eyelids began to drop. Suddenly, an amoeba that looked a lot like Arthur appeared on the screen. Its pants fell down, showing its underwear. Help, cried Arthur Amoeba. I need my pants. All of the other amoebas started to laugh. Arthur Amoeba was too embarrassed to move. Then he felt someone shaking him. Wake up, Arthur, said Buster. The movie's over. At lunch, Arthur didn't feel like eating. What should I do, Buster? Every time I go to sleep, I'm in my underwear. Try staying awake, Buster suggested. You can't dream if you don't sleep. That night, Arthur tried some tricks to stay awake. Old MacDonald had a farm, but as hard as he tried, Arthur just couldn't. I'll get you, Verminator, after I take a little nap. In Arthur's dream, the Verminator was tutoring the class by scratching his claws on the blackboard. Hearing cries for help, Bionic Arthur rushed to the rescue. But as he entered the classroom to take on the Verminator, everyone started to laugh. "My pants," Arthur gasped as he woke up with a start. "Rise and shine, Mr. Fancy Pants," said DW. "They're right here. Mom says you better shake a leg or you'll be late for school." Arthur asked Buster for some emergency advice on the way to school. "It even happens when I'm a superhero," he exclaimed. "I can't stay awake forever. I'm doomed." "Maybe you should sleep in your pants," said Buster. "That way you won't have to worry about putting them on." That night, DW came into Arthur's room. "Why are you wearing your pants to bed?" she asked. "Because, that way I can be ready for school faster," he said quickly. "I'm going to ask Mom if I can sleep in my clothes too," DW said. "Maybe my coat and boots." "Mom," Arthur sighed and changed into his pajama pants. The next day, Arthur was more worried than ever. "What if people find out about my underwear problem?" he asked Buster. "They'll call me names, and then I'll have to change schools." "Don't worry," said Buster. "Your secret is safe with me." At lunch the following day, Arthur sat with Francine and Muffy. They looked at him and started to giggle. "What's so funny?" Arthur asked. "Do you have your pants on?" asked Francine. "Better make sure." Arthur checked. He was wearing his pants. He moved to another table. "I heard about your nightmares," said the brain. "So I got a couple of books on dreams. Apparently, you have a pathological fear of embarrassment." Arthur got up to find Buster. "Buster," cried Arthur, "you told everyone about my underwear dreams." "Not everyone," replied Buster. "Only a few kids." "Buster, how could you?" Well, if I couldn't help you, I needed some advice." "This is so embarrassing," said Arthur. When Arthur turned to run out of the cafeteria, his pants pocket got caught. Rip! Everyone in the cafeteria began to laugh. Arthur couldn't move, but Binky grabbed 2 trays to cover him. "Quick," he whispered, "into the kitchen." Miss McGrady wrapped her apron around Arthur and got out a needle and thread. "I'm sorry," Buster said. I shouldn't have told anyone." "It's okay," said Arthur sadly. "You were just trying to help. The hard part will be telling my parents that I have to change schools." Miss McGrady handed Arthur his pants. "Thanks," said Arthur. "Is there a back door?" "Afraid not," said Miss McGrady. But do you know the old saying, a banana without its peel is still a banana?" "Huh?" said Arthur and Buster. "It means people get embarrassed all the time," Binky explained. "But you're still Arthur," said Miss McGrady. "A smart, kind young man, with or without your pants." Arthur smiled. A few days later, Arthur met Buster at the Sugar Bowl. "Well, no more underwear nightmares," Arthur said. "That's great," said Buster. "I never thought that ripping your pants in the cafeteria would be the thing to cure you." As they stood up to leave, Arthur looked at Buster and frowned. Buster, I think you forgot something." Buster woke up with a scream. "Uh-oh," he sighed. "Here we go again." And that's the end of the story. So that was Arthur's underwear. It's like everybody was having dreams and nightmares about ripping their underwear after Binky ripped his underwear. So the next book, like I said, is a chapter book. And we're only reading one chapter out of the chapter book today. And then next week we'll read another chapter along with a topic. So this is Peter Pan, and it's by J.M. Barrie. And we're going to start with chapter 1. And chapter 1 is entitled Peter Breaks Through. Peter breaks through. All children except one must grow up. The way Wendy knew this was one day when she was a very little girl, she picked a flower from the garden to show to her mother. Miss Darling held the flower over her heart. "Oh, Wendy," she said with a loving smile, "why can't you just stay like this forever?" Wendy was just 2 years old, but from that moment on, she knew that she must grow up. Wendy's mother was a lovely lady. Mr. Darling knew that when he married her, he loved her, and she loved him. He liked to boast that she also respected him, which she did. At first, the Darlings worried if they could afford children. Before each child was born, Miss Darling said, "Of course we can, George. We'll watch every penny." First came Wendy, then John, and Michael was the last. The Darlings had a nurse for the children because Miss Darling liked everything just so, and Mr. Darling wanted to be just like their neighbors. But since they were poor, the nurse was Nana, a very proper Newfoundland dog they found in Kensington Gardens. Nana was a very good nurse. She learned to be a nurse by watching the other nurses in the park. She made sure the children bathed properly. She knew when a cough was just a cough and nothing serious. And if one of them cried at night, she was up in an instant to see why. That was easy because she lived in the children's room. When the children started school, Nana made sure they got there safely. She walked primly alongside them, butting anyone who strayed out of line. She made sure John didn't forget his soccer sweater, and if it looked like rain, she carried an umbrella in her mouth. At school, Nana stayed in the basement while the children sat in the classroom upstairs. Nana didn't like Miss Darling's friends to make surprise visits to the children's room, but if they came, she quickly dressed Micah in a clean outfit, brushed Wendy's hair, and tried her best to do something with John's hair. She was a very proper nurse, even though Mr. Darling wondered if the neighbors thought it odd to have a dog for a nurse. After all, he had his position in the city to consider. There never was a happier family until the coming of Peter Pan. Miss Darling first heard of Peter while tidying up her children's minds when they were asleep. Children don't know mothers do this, but they do. It's a little like tidying up drawers. Every child has a special place called Neverland, filled with strange and wonderful spots that are his or her very own. Every Neverland is different. Some have rivers and reefs and gnomes and princes and caves of every kind. Others, like John's, had a lagoon where he lived on the sand in a boat turned upside down. Michael's also had a lagoon, but he lived in a wigwam, while Wendy had a house made of leaves. Neverland is filled with wonderful adventures, and at night, just before you go to sleep, it seems very, very real. Miss Darling did not know anyone named Peter, but there he was in each child's mind. "Who's Peter?" she asked Wendy. "He is Peter Pan," Wendy replied. At first, Miss Darling was puzzled. Then she remembered her own childhood and someone called Peter Pan, who was said to live with fairies. People said he comforted children. Miss Darling believed in him then, but he's grown up now, she said to Wendy. "Oh no," Wendy said, "he isn't grown up at all, and he's just my size." When Miss Darling told Mr. Darling about Peter Pan, he laughed and said it was some of Nana's nonsense. "Forget it, and it would go away," he said, but it didn't. One morning, Wendy awoke to find tree leaves scattered about the bedroom floor. They weren't there when she and the boys had gone to bed. "Oh, it was just Peter," she said when her mother asked how they got there. "He didn't wipe his feet as he should when he comes in the window." Wendy smiled. Sometimes he comes in at night and plays his pipes at the foot of my bed, she said. Miss Darling was shocked. Why, you must have been dreaming, she said. But the leaves were real and came from a tree she had never seen before. Wendy had not been dreaming, and the very next night, an extraordinary adventure began. It was Nana's night out, so Miss Darling took the children into bed. She gazed at them tenderly as she sat by the fireplace to sew. The fire was warm, and the room was bathed in soft light. Soon she began to doze. While she slept, she had a dream. In the dream, Neverland came much too near, and a strange boy got out. The boy had torn the curtain that usually covers Neverland, and Wendy and John and Michael were peeking through. Miss Darling dreamed the nursery window blew open and the boy flew into the room. She thought she recognized him. At his side was a tiny bright light, no bigger than a fist. It darted through the room as if it were alive. The strange light awakened Miss Darling. She put her hand to her mouth in surprise, for she knew at once that the boy was Peter Pan. Miss Darling cried out at the sight of the strange boy. At that moment, Nana entered the room back from her evening out. She too saw the boy, and not knowing what to think, leaped at him with a fierce growl. So guys, those are the two stories that we read for today in Active Nana's World. So we'll pick up next week to find out what happens in Peter Pan when they were in the next chapter. We'll see what the adventure is. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed the episode for today, and I look forward to coming back this time next week. We're gonna do another chapter in Peter Pan, and I have a topic prepared for the adults of our little ones that's taking care of you guys. But until then, this is Don, aka the Interactive Nanny, signing off in Interactive Nanny's World, where love and play are interactive. You guys take care, be safe, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.